Now, this upcoming panel will bring together thought leaders and experts from different parts of the world to discuss how real estate transactions work in their respective countries, where MLSs can fill existing gaps, and the potential benefits of establishing MLSs in emerging markets. Our next moderator needs no introduction. CEO of RESO, please help me welcome back to the stage Sam DeBord.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So we've heard a diversity of business models, MLS applications, stages of maturity of MLSs in different countries. And that's really what we're here for, that some countries are still in the very early stages of trying to put together whatever sort of organized marketplace works for the legal, language, different cultural things that need to fit. But we've got some folks from a wide variety of countries here to talk a little bit about the differences in the business models they see, what opportunities there are, and then some of the challenges they have in their market. So if you could each just introduce yourself and your role.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much. I just want to thank you, Marion, MLS, RESO, and CEPI for these fantastic 2 days. I'm Davide Draghetti, Head of European Institutional Activities within FIAI. FIAI is the biggest Italian real estate federation, part also of GIPE. And I'm extremely pleased to be here with you all.
Hello, everyone. Big pleasure to be here in a peaceful environment and to talk with professionals about what is in our heart, what we would like to implement in our countries. I'm a broker owner since 1992, just from the beginning of our market after Soviet Union collapse. And in the year 2000, I understand how real estate sales brokers are working in the United States. And since this year, 2004 probably, I'm preaching, I can say, teaching Eastern Europe how to implement this genius model, one of the best in the world, in Eastern European country. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anuudari. I am from Mongolia. I am the very first broker owner of Remax Mongolia region, and I am one of the board members of Real Estate Academy Mongolia, which is the bilateral association of NAR. Also, I work as an advisor to the Real Estate Academy and one of its instructors. Thanks for having me.
Hello, everybody. My name is Negulescu. I'm a real estate agent from 1999 and a realtor and a real estate addicted or maniac, whatever you want, from 2005 when I found out that there is NAR, there are standards, there are rules, regulations, and can be introduced in the Wild East, which is Eastern Europe, and specific in my country. And since then, knowing also Arthur and other dinosaurs in, how to say, updating the Eastern European real estate market, we started preaching and we are still here. Thanks, God.
Thanks, Dan. So Davide, let's start with you.
Yeah.
We're here in Italy. So describe to us a little bit about everything from agency, brokerage, MLS. What's the state of affairs in Italy?
Okay, so let me start with the certification. So if you want to work as a realtor, as a estate agent, obviously you need to take a course. So we got 20 regions, and each region is organizing courses to become an agent. Approximately is 150 hours course. Then you need to take an exam. both written and oral. Once you pass the exam, you need to register with the Chamber of Commerce, and then if you wish, you can sign up also to a federation. We are the largest one and the most recommended. We got approximately 15,000 agencies spread across the country with about 10,000 agents. And then you can start working as a realtor. And this is basically the simple and straightforward process to work as a real estate agent in Italy. With regard to MLS, I think our country is running behind other early adopters and pioneers. However, having worked and lived abroad for 20 years, I think there is a massive opportunity to take MLS into Italy. Not only about the residential working space, but also to other working space. And this is where I see MLS getting into the market. The other thing is, the other opportunity is the cross-border transaction. If I think about the US, we got 70 million Italians that between first, second, and third generation, they're living in the US. And those that have got boundaries with Italy. So I think this will be the first opportunity. I can expand a little bit more, but I want to pass it on to the other panelists.
Sure, and then we'll let you definitely do that
Okay.
further on. Yeah, so Arthur, you not only work in Ukraine, you work teaching in a number of different countries. So what is your view on sort of the state of affairs in the countries that you're working in and teaching in?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. It's interesting. I'm teaching so-called post-socialist countries, post-Soviet, post-socialist countries, and in every country, I provided my courses in 11 countries, in 82 cities. And in every country, in every city, after one day, it's sabotage. The second day is understanding. The third day, they say, it's logical. It's logical, it's efficient, it's good, but it will not work in our country, in our city. Because of the mentality, etc., I'm sure that you have the same idea. So my explanation of this, sorry, I will be political correct, but in this war for freedom and the justice in our country, we need to adapt the best weapon. Sorry about this allegory, but I'm looking for our Ukrainian militaries who adapt F-16, fighting Falcon. First, they say it's impossible. It's impossible to understand this system, to adapt it, to have a skill, to fly. But we need it. And what I would like to say, that Lockheed Martin has failures. They has catastrophic. Sometimes F-16 is crashed, but it doesn't mean that we need to refuse from this. This is the best proven technology. This is the best efficient tool. So that's why it's my mission, motion to say that, guys, this is the best. That's why we need to understand, to adapt it, and it's in the leader's hand. Firstly, to understand it, and then to lead.
Anu, do you feel like folks in your market understand the vision, or accepting of that vision, or is it still in a very early phase?
Yeah. So in Mongolia, the real estate sector is quite young, and the very first real estate agency is established in 1997. It's quite young. And there are 308 real estate agencies operating in Mongolia now. And the biggest player is RE/MAX Mongolia. So it It has 1,200 agents. And there is no MLS available in Mongolia yet, but we are trying to create in the right way. So we are learning, searching, and gaining experiencing. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
And
Was it clear?
Yeah, I think you've done some work with some of the realtor associations from the U.S. as well. Has that been a positive relationship there in terms of bringing that model?
Yep. So as I mentioned before, we are trying to create MLS. So I work as an advisor to the Real Estate Academy, and we organized about MLS training twice to the realtors, brokers, agents, and government officials, and developers, and some technology companies, because nobody knows about MLS, I mean, the most of them. So the Washington Realtors Association is the ambassador association of Real Estate Academy Mongolia. So we organized the training together, and it's the beginning. I think we are moving the first step, because nobody knows about MLS, so they don't know how to cooperate. So that's the first. So we need to educate and continue.
Great. Dan, you've got a unique MLS situation, so I'll just let you dive into it.
Education, rules, and tools. This can be a summary of a real MLS environment, because we are not talking about different things. We are talking about the environment. Without education about exclusive representation, you cannot have an MLS, period, because you cannot share what you don't represent. So you have to represent a seller in order to commit to cooperate with other buyers. In order to do that, you need education. Education about exclusive representation, education about ethics, education about cooperation, education about MLS rules. Because without the rules, you cannot cooperate. It's a wild east. Everybody's cooperating with anything 200 times, the same announcement, because I cannot say listing for that, the same ad, 200 times, 200 prices, 200 descriptions. That's crazy. And it's against us as professionals. Most dangerous, it's against the consumer, against the seller, which put his trust in us to represent his interest. So education, rules, and tools. What other tool than a professional, proved tool, transparent, ethical, efficient, than MLS can be?
So this session is called business models, and obviously there's a component of that is how do people get paid, how do people get compensated, and this is one of those things that in a U.S. conference we would all get very tight around the neck and sweat a little bit. The conversation is not really about recommending what kind of compensation model should happen in each country, but it's important, I think, for people to hear how those work generally in your marketplaces, and whether you think that that is something that contributes to the future of a more organized marketplace, or maybe if there's ways that that needs to change the way folks are compensated in that marketplace to encourage this exclusive agency, exclusive listings, cooperation across the MLS. And I'll just stick with you for right now, Dan.
So I'm talking about Romania as a market. In our country, we don't have yet a real estate law. We are struggling, and hopefully this year we'll have it. So as of today, you, Sam, can come in Romania and be tomorrow a real estate agent, not a realtor, because in order to be a realtor, you have to belong either to NAR or to a bilateral partner of NAR. In this case, this bilateral partner is APAIR, the association that, by the way, me and Sorin from there founded 19 years ago. So, no laws. In this case, how can you work? You go to the general law. You have to have a company, option number one. Option number two, to be hired by a company. Option number three, to go to a franchise, to work with a franchise as a physical person, or it is a physical, professional, individual. So these are the ways of work in real estate. Now about compensation, about way of us being paid, because this was the question, depends how you connect with each of these things. If you own your company, it's one way. You get the commission, it's your commission, and you do whatever you want. If you are hired, you are under a broker, and you get a split. If you are in a franchise, you have to pay the fees, monthly fees, something, and you, in a way, mix both the above things. I mean, you are your own boss, but under an umbrella. By the way, I'm working in this type of environment.
Okay, Anu, what's the business model look like for brokers in your market?
In Mongolia, we are saying there is no agency law yet, but the good news is the agency law is under discussion. So, and in Mongolia, there are 3 franchise companies in real estate, and there are such as Remax, Century 21, and Keller Williams. And the biggest one is Remax, because the 88% of the real estate transactions conducted through the brokerage at Remax. So all the franchises are commission-based agents, and the most of local companies are salary-based, and some of them use the mixed, both use.
So salary-based and commission-based.
Salary-based, and they can get some of
and then the
small amount of commission, I mean.
Okay, and then the compensation goes through the broker to the agent to sign up for those franchises?
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, you
Can
got
I add something, please? As I said before, in 2005, I was first time in America, and I saw what's happening there. And I met the big franchises mentioned by her, all of them. And I went to them, and I said, please, 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 come to my country and show us your business, your way of doing things. Because obviously, you are number 1, 2, and 3 here. Come here and teach us how to do it. How to do agency, how to do contracts, how to work ethical. Unfortunately, all these names, I cannot say names because they will sue me. All these names and other names came to my country, and instead of showing us the light, I mean the procedures, the way to doing things, they converted to the good old Romanian non-style of real estate. And I bet this happens to all the other countries. Irena is telling me it's the same. In Turkey, no. So unfortunately, summarizing, I was counting on the, how to say, not professionalism, ethics of these companies to come to Eastern Europe and to develop ethical and professional way of doing things. Instead of that, they came and adapt to the non-rules there. And that's why I'm so happy that I had the chance to work in a Romanian franchise based on the American models, which the only difference is we are abiding the American models even if we are Romanian.
And that makes sense that the brokerage companies, first entry, easiest entry into a marketplace is, most likely going to be adapt to what the customs are, what the current status quo is in that market. What's your experience been, Arthur?
Sam, the same names announced already.
I forgot it.
The big franchises from the United States, really, they need to have a brave to show an example in our countries. I remember in 2020, in the COVID year, when Zoom conferences started, webinars, and I was present from the webinar about international strategy for American real estate companies entering in emerging markets. And one of the vice presidents said, we recommend to our representatives in other countries, when they enter to the countries, forget about how we are working in the United States. We need to adapt their local model to make money. You know, I had time to write him a message. What about human rights? What about freedom? What about everything you support? We count on you. We know that you are supporter of right things in the world. Why you need to go to our countries and forget your best models and adapt to ours? So really, I'm happy to be here with co-minders who understand that this is our, mission to understand first, to adapt it, and to provide it the best model, the best technology, the best tool in our country, because we need change. We need to change. And your question, how is working now? I can say, unfortunately, a real estate market started in early 90s when the demand was huge, and that's why real estate professionals, so-called, decided that it's better to collect compensation from the buyer side, not from the seller side. And even more, they started to sign exclusive, so-called exclusive listings with the seller, but free of charge, without any compensation. So it's an absolutely crazy model. I'm working from the seller side, but I expect my money, and even more. I not expect, but I extort this money from the buyer side. That's why it started to discredit all the idea. Not buyer, neither the seller understand why they need real estate professional. So it's changed already, of course. It changed by the nerves, but we need to continue. And unfortunately, I can't show you the slides. Joe Schneider, he is not here today. He sent me 5 years ago one article. Oh, Joe, hello. He sent me 5 years ago an article written in 1922. It was an article about how to promote MLS in different cities of the United States. And the name of this article was What Nerve Did. And the idea was that you need to invent only one thing, nerves of the leader to organize MLS. You need to invent nerves of the leaders. Not money, not but leaders who understand it. It's their task.
I think that's why this is such a great event too, and that a single brokerage company on its own is not likely to go in and change the entire organized marketplace of another country, but you've got MLS leaders here who do that. They already run those kinds of organizations. They've got the ability to consult and advise and bring, to your point, the nerve, the courage to be able to try to change a marketplace, which is a very difficult thing to do and can't happen with just one company at a time. What's your experience with the business model?
I mean, just to contextualize what has been said till now, in addition to education, rule, and tools, I think is, from an Italian perspective, language barrier is definitely a challenge. Then the mindset. So this is why I was thinking more like a cross-border transaction, because if I look at the business model, obviously you go at exclusive listing, so you tend to be very protective with your properties, and you are very reluctant to share the details about the properties unless you are part of a franchise. And in Italy, there are franchises, obviously, like everywhere else, but the reality is more like individual real estate agent. So to contextualize and to give you a perspective about the opportunity for the future I think is going beyond the residential space, looking at the commercial environment, looking at the agriculture environment. I heard some example earlier on about Wisconsin. That is definitely an opportunity. And these are, for me, the options that are going beyond the education rule and tools. And at the end of the day, you can have the best technological tools available, but the human interaction is the key to succeed, because real estate agent will not disappear. You can have artificial intelligence, you can have Alexa, you can have whatever you want, but at the end of the day, if you are in Seattle and you call me up to sell a property or to buy a property in Bologna, obviously you need someone that you can trust in order to complete the transaction. And you need someone you can trust in order to navigate within the legislation and the local environment. So,
do you think that, where do you think the power sort of lies in the business profession in Italy? And that in the US, we obviously the MLS has its own rules. There's a realtor code of ethics. The brokerage has its own license. The agents sit underneath that license as part of the brokerage. But I think the common thought is the agents have the power. The agents are driving the business models. They're driving the brokerages to go, in the direction that's best for them. Do you feel like that's where the power sits in the Italian marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, yes. Obviously, you need to have the knowledge of the local marketplace. That is the key to succeed, because obviously if you are coming, obviously you need to understand also why you are coming to Italy, why you want to invest to Italy. Is for a leisure perspective or for an investment perspective? Looking at the yield, looking at the profitability. So there are many variables that are taking place. So it's not like a straightforward answer, because there are many options available. So this is where I see the partnership evolving and beginning and taking MLS into another dimension.
Dan, you had something on that topic?
In my opinion, MLS is the power of the agents, as opposed to the portals, which has a different approach. The portals want to make money and to put everything, all the information there. In my opinion, MLS, because it's driven by the information given by us from the field, should be the power of the agents. MLS should be the marketplace of the agents. That's one. And second, I was thinking, why do we have this big problem with MLS in Europe? The logic, in my opinion, is the following. In the United States, everything started with the associations, then the MLS. You remember on the papers, sharing papers, blah, 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 based on the rules. And then it was the digitalization and the portals came. So the information was already in the MLS, was already owned by realtors, by agents. In Europe, it's totally opposite. We didn't have MLSs, but we had the portals. And now it's a bit complicated, to be very politically correct, to give the MLS the real power that should have, because it's totally opposite. So in my opinion, in Europe, we need to find ways of cooperating and to use the both things, the MLS clear information from the agents, together with the possibility of working together somehow with the portals in order to eliminate the big threat. The big threat is noise. 200 million so-called listings, ads, which ruin business, ruin credibility, ruin our professional image. That's my opinion.
But just to tipping on that, there is a fundamental difference between the US and Europe. You are one single state, one single language, one single law, unless you got the local state law. In Europe, we go, I mean, you see with the European Union, you got 25 countries, 25 languages, 25 history, 25 difference across multi-dimension. So this is where piggyback on what has been said before is glocal. Glocal is the key word. So thinking globally, act locally, because that is the, for me, the main opportunity for MLS to succeed. And obviously in Europe, there are countries that are ahead of the game because there are either early adopters or innovators. Italy, on these particular topics, we are laggards. We are laggards. We might be early innovators on our other field, like food and fashion, but on real estate, definitely is an opportunity for us.
Go ahead, Arthur.
So, you know everything about standards. So, you know, I've been in by real estate business in 29 countries, different countries. In 19, I had the speech during the conferences, etc. And what I learned, that the difference, the huge difference, the big difference, probably the main difference from the United States, is the name of the profession. Look, in the United States, you received your license. Where is written? Real estate salesperson. That's it, salesperson. Doesn't matter. Are you working with owner or with the buyer? But you are remain real estate salesperson, salesman, saleswoman, sales agent. And you have a broker. Yes, broker is a director. But the core, who is the main service provider, is a real estate sales agent. Once again, in many, many European countries, it's not the case. In many countries, we are called like intermediary. And if you are intermediary, you don't have any fiduciary obligation to the one side, to the profession. You are not understand why you need to cooperate. What is exclusive right to sell? How to create demand? How to manage it to receive a maximum possible price for this owner and receive your compensation. Without this, the logic of MLS disappeared.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Because the main idea of MLS, and I strongly believe in this, it's written, by the way, in NAR site till now, that MLS is a private offer of cooperation and compensation from listing broker to the selling agent, to the buyer agents. Even this idea, semantic, that buyer's agent are called in the United States selling agent. Look, it's genius. So this is what we need in 2024, understand, learn, and bring in our countries.
Anu, can you talk a little bit about sort of where the power lies in the real estate profession in Mongolia and who's driving those business models in what direction?
So, as I mentioned before, the REMAX is leading in the real estate industry in Mongolia, but we face some of the challenges. For example, there is no agency law, so there are many different levels of services. Second, we do not have MLS. There is no MLS available in Mongolia, so there are many duplicate listings. So, and all of the broker real estate agencies must have license from the Financial Regulatory Commission. And that's the very important step to the real estate sector, because we do not have licensing law, but we do get a license from the financial FRC, I mean. So the MLS is necessary. I think the leading company should lead, because it's not about just increase transaction numbers. It's just about putting customers' interests first, and it will have a big impact to the economic circulation. So in my opinion, we should create, the leading company should create an MLS and should work on it. And they have different minds, different thoughts and different level of services. So MLS is very important thing for us.
So there's obviously challenges and different stages of development of MLS in each country, and I think we talked a lot about the challenges. But I'd love to hear what you think maybe are the specific things for folks who are thinking of their takeaway, what they're going to take home, and look at one specific thing they really want to start with in their country. And I want to ask you, Dan, and one thing in particular. It seems like there's such a big lift just to get that cooperation started to sort of seed the data into an MLS and make it a useful tool. And until people can see that vision of something working and actually having an information resource, it's hard for them to imagine working in that place. Can you talk a little bit about how you did that in Romania?
It's about community. It's about local community, and it's about local group of people wanting to cooperate. As Sorin said earlier, we missed it at the beginning. So if we, anywhere in Europe, if you want to start an MLS, start with a community, do a community with the same interest, serving better the consumers and the clients. By the way, it's a big difference between a consumer and a client. The client is the guy that you are working with or for with a contract. The consumer is the other part. So in order to get there, you need to build the group of people working together and starting from there. And putting there the rules, everybody agrees from that community, start sharing the information, sharing the commission, because we don't have the problem yet that you have in the United States. And I pray that we will never have this problem, because obvious we are smarter in Europe. Sorry, guys. So sharing the commission is a way of involving everybody in this, be transparent. By the way, sharing the commission with both parties, knowing that, with full disclosure, definitely, and abide the same rules agreed by this community, and then expand these communities around the country.
Anu, do you think there's something specific, a next step that you need in your marketplace, something that would be the next thing you would focus on to move MLS forward?
The next step in my country, in Romania, is to go back to the roots and start with the communities, because if we are spreading in the whole country, it's a dilution of the model. We have to put together the communities back, because so far it was difficult. Now we have to put back the communities and continue from there on this basis. And add on to this the new technologies, new tools, but without avoiding the MLS.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just to summarize the perspective from our country, is a very simple equation. And does the tool add value? Yes or no? If you want to break the barrier of perplexity, does the tool is providing you a win-win outcome? And the third one is the dollar value associated to that. So if the answer to these three questions is yes, then there is a massive opportunity. If these three questions, they get a no answer or a ni answer, then, or a wishy-washy answer, then it will be a challenge.
Do you think it hasn't been described at this stage in a win-win way that people understand it that way yet?
I think is and the last piece is the human interaction and the trust and the credibility and the integrity. To have someone on the other side of the ocean that you can trust and build a relationship. If these three questions, plus the human interaction, what we call is the emotional boundaries, the love boundaries, and I mean, from a professional perspective, I think there is a massive way forward. Otherwise, it will remain a challenge for our country.
Anu, in Mongolia, what do you think the next step is? What's the next concrete step for your marketplace to work on in terms of developing MLS?
So the first step is education, educate for all of them. So the second is the who is lead. It's very important because the leading, the Remax agents are most of the agents. So I mean the 45% of the agents in Mongolia are at Remax. So if they want to cooperate, it will not work. So that's why I tell about the education. So, and the second, we should cooperate with the government. I mean the government and technology companies. They don't know about MLS too. So I mean about maybe some expenses or cooperation and the support. And the positive thing is we do not have MLS. We can create the MLS in the right way. We don't need to spend the money or spend time to fix something. So
yeah, you've got 100 years of experience to draw on the mistakes and the things that went well. So Arthur, you've got the last word. What's the next step?
Good, thank you. 10 years ago, I read the Daniel Kennedy book, How to List and Sell Real Estate. It was 30th edition of this book. And there was the phrase, before you can be a strong lister, you must have a strong listing philosophy. That's why I'm happy to hear from Ahmed, for example, that cooperation with government, as in your country, is a good idea to implement even MLS. But unfortunately, I don't count that our government understands this philosophy. So that's why the only option is to count to the leaders, to the local guys, to the group of the people, commanders who understand it. And if I'm happy to have new associations from Armenia here, from Moldova, Georgian association, they are eager to create it, they understand it. If not, the only one option, we need rotation, democratic principle of rotation. Because if we have a leader who doesn't understand the idea, even more, they are ready, they are happy that in Kansas City last autumn, NAR lost the game, and they say, you see, it's illegal already, forget about MLS, etc. So my question is for you, to American colleagues, partners, with whom you have a partner bilateral agreement in these countries, be more demanded. Don't hesitate to ask a question as a minimum. So we count only on us, leaders. Once again, we need to invest nerves.
Yeah. Can I add something?
Sure.
It's
Dan,
about trust.
I give a guy a last word, and Dan's always going to be there. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great.
The word is trust. If we trust in us as professionals, if we trust in our way of doing business, then we can share this trust not only among us, but also with the customer. As you know, when you go to try to sell something, he's feeling that you want to do something and he's trusting you. I want Arthur to trust me, to cooperate with me, because it's about trust and it's about sharing the knowledge and the business together.
Wise
Trust.
words. Wise words. Thank you. Can you please give this panel of experts a round
Thank
of
you.
applause?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Grazie.
You may not be able to see it on the bottom. Somebody is doing a prompt. Thank you, REALTOR. So some of you, is anybody feeling a little cold? Yeah. So I have a suggestion, it will make you feel a little warmer. This is because sustainability and energy efficiency regulation here in Europe, you can only turn on heating in certain venues after the 15th of October. So you should feel warm and cozy that you're part of saving the world a little bit with Europe. So I hope you're good. So the next panel is, I'm very excited about this one. It explores the differences in evolving relationships between the direct-to-consumer real estate portals and MLSs. And as you know, in North America, we have a very symbiotic relationship with our portals, but that's not always the case elsewhere. And moderating this panel is my good friend, Patrick Pichette, Vice President of REALTOR.ca in Canada, at the Canadian Real Estate Association. He's responsible for the development and growth of Canada's leading real estate portal, REALTOR.ca, and other technology services that support Canada's realtors. Patrick is also a director of RESO. Please help me welcome Patrick.
Matthew, I got nervous there for a sec. I thought maybe you're going to replace the panel by ChatGPT. Yeah. Hi, good morning, everyone. I was fortunate enough to attend the event in Paris last year, and it was a successful event, but I have to admit, I really think RESO, CEPI, and REALTOR have raised the bar with this year's event. The content, the networking has been absolutely amazing. So thank you to Ali and everybody involved in organizing this very unique and definitely a well-needed event. So let's jump right into the panel. I'm very honored to be able to introduce this very talented group of experts, starting with Emily Chenevert, CEO of the Austin Board of Realtors and Unlock MLS, Bob Evans, Senior Vice President of Industry Relations at Realtor.com and fellow RESO Director, Daniel Holmquist, Secretary of the Board of GIPE, one of Spain's oldest associations, and VP of the CEPI Committee, and Roberto Vannucci, Senior Vice President, Head of Brokerage at Homegenius Real Estate. Welcome. So thank you very much for accepting the invitation. I think a good place to start would be to invite you to say a few words about your company, but also tell us why you made the decision to attend this year's event. Emily.
Sure, great. Well, proud to be here from Austin, Texas. While there's an American flag up there for our country, we like to kid that Texas is big enough and bold enough to be its own country within. So happy to be here from Texas. I help run an association and multiple listing service that supports nearly 20,000 Central Texas realtors in a region that is diverse, that is growing rapidly, that is very tech forward and supportive of the cooperative marketplace that we get to partake in. And we're here because we believe and understand that our market is a globally focused one, that it is one that is attractive to hopefully many of your countries inbound, that we have lots of international interest outbound of our marketplace, and we believe in the value of establishing those strong relationships so that we can be in partnership as you're entering our marketplace.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes, Bob Evans, Senior Vice President with Realtor.com. Why I'm here, bluntly, is Mary Jo asked me, said, Bob, can you come? And that was all I needed. So thrilled for the invitation. I sit on the RESO board, as do you, so very pleased to be here. My team at Realtor.com is the industry team, and we interact, interface, and partner with the MLS execs and association execs and the National Association of Realtors and the State Association of Realtors across the entire country. So very comfortable with, this is my team, many in the room, so pleased to be here and being supportive to the event.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
So my name is Daniel Holmquist. I'm originally from Sweden, but since 1999 I've been living and working in southern Spain on the Costa del Sol. I'm on the board of GIPE, which is one of the oldest real estate associations in Spain, also obviously part of CEPI. At CEPI, I'm the vice chairman for the CEPI committee. CEPI is the quality seal that we are creating for the European market, and we're very excited to launch on the 1st of January. Working in a very dynamic market myself on the Costa del Sol, where we have a lot of nationalities, a lot of languages, and a very, very exciting market.
Thank you, Daniel.
So my name is Rob Vannucci, for the American audience. Per gli italiani, io sono Roberto. My company is Homegenius Real Estate, which many of you may or may not be familiar with. We're a little bit unique in the industry space. We're licensed in all 50 of the United States. We're a member of over 300 multiple listing services across America. And our clients tend to be many of the larger corporations, many of the larger institutions. Our parent company is a large financial services company, very active in the mortgage space. And just as some background, one of our largest clients is Freddie Mac, which is a government entity in America. And because our background is in the default space, we helped Freddie Mac in the disposition of some of their REO assets.
Thank you. I wanted to start off with a very just basic, a very simple question. It's a question that's been answered a few times since yesterday. So let's pretend that we're back on day one, we're the opening panel. In a few words, how would you explain the difference between an MLS and a portal? Let's start with you, Roberto.
I think you nailed it in that there is, in fact, a difference. The portals and the MLSs, there are clearly similarities. They clearly coexist. There's obviously similarities in the data, but the functions and the audiences that they serve are, in fact, very different. And, you know, I don't believe, contrary to popular opinion, that MLSs are trying to be portals, nor do I think that portals are trying to become MLSs. They very much peacefully coexist. I view them as collaborators more than I view them as competitors. And I think it just starts with that foundational knowledge.
Daniel, I'd love to get your take, being the sole European on the panel.
Well, at least in Spain, we have the portals that have a major market share, I'd say, and we see many smaller and medium-sized MLSs that are maybe not the same type of MLSs as you might see in North America, but the portals are almighty in our market, and it's I do to some extent agree with what you say, that they could very well coexist peacefully, and they should. I think, being a bit of an idealist, I think perhaps the portal should be the user interface of the MLSs. However, that is not always the case, and there can be some friction between them.
Right, we'll come back to that later for sure. Bob, thoughts?
Yeah, sort of agreeing with the sentiment so far. To me, they overlap very little, and they're highly complementary in much the way that the stock market makes a market for equity, and there's exchange, but the exchange isn't where people go to get stock prices. They go to Yahoo Finance, they go to Schwab. Those are portals. They're not the entity that makes the market work. The MLS makes the market work. We are an extension of a successful market that allows consumers to have an access to the data they need to be able to process a home search or inquiry, but we're entirely different. The MLS is actually the framework in which every local market in the country operates. So there's tremendous distinction, but at the same time, we share a common set of goals. We serve the exact same customers, the brokers and agents. We desire to delight consumers, to bring transparency and access to all the listings in our markets to consumers so they can be the most informed. We are not competitive and more complementary, in the US at least, than perhaps you would perceive if you were looking at it from maybe elsewhere. And we absolutely understand our lanes and why we cooperate and work together as well as we do.
Emily?
My sense is that, Bob, that's right at home. But after a day and a half of listening to all of you about what's happening in your countries, it's very simple and straightforward to me that portals are aiming to serve customers directly. It's B2C. And that the purpose of MLSs at home and here really can be a B2B2C, that by empowering and enabling agents who are willing to cooperate and work together, you are therefore better serving those customers and consumers. So I think the real distinction is who you aim to serve, and how you make money on the back of that is sort of the long tail of it.
Right. Roberto, I wanted to come back to you. Can you give an example of collaboration between MLSs and portals that's caught your attention recently?
I think the most obvious answer to that, and I'm going to go back to your comment, let's pretend that it's the morning of day one, because we have clearly heard it more than once up on this panel, but it is the data dictionary that RESO has developed. And so, again, for background, for those of you who are not from the United States, there are over 500 MLSs across the United States. And so that's 500 MLSs with 500 different data feeds. And in many cases, that's nuanced by the unique properties in a given market. So you can imagine if you're looking at waterfront property in Miami, if you're looking at a condo in New York City, if you're looking at a state in the country in Connecticut, those are going to have very different characteristics of the property. And therefore, you're going to have very different characteristics in the data feed. And so as a technology provider trying to manage all of that can be a bit laborious. It can be a bit of a challenge. And so in essence, you have a data dictionary that's accounted for those local nuances, but created a level of standardization. And so from my seat as a company that has developed numerous technologies, before and after the data dictionary, I can say we've seen the pain of without, and we've seen the benefits thereof. And I think I can speak for the portals in a similar vein. Without naming names of specific portals in the United States, there are portals that operated without a level of data standardization, and there are portals that now do benefit from that. And I think at the end of the day, if we talk about the end consumer and the consumer experience, there is accuracy and there's just a general consistency in the data. I think Sam shared the Bahamian example yesterday that just didn't exist without that data dictionary.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Just on that same note, Bob, Emily, any other examples of collaboration between portals and MLSs that has generated value for both professionals and consumers? Anything come to mind?
Sure. Totally agree. Thanks. Where we are at the moment, working with consumers and also working with our agent broker customers, is really putting a lot of time and thought into leveraging AI. And so the evolving consumer experience, whether it's conversational search or renovation tools or image-based querying rather than text-based querying to find your next dream home, there's a lot of activity there. So we're focused on that, but we're also focused in helping our MLS partners, because we often are thinking about ourselves, but we're thinking about the industry participants that partner with us. And so we've embarked more recently on having conversations with, the size of the US is big, so we'll say a handful of MLSs just to get started with, and sharing with them some of our vision around what we're doing in this space, and then talking to them about how we can leverage what we're doing to not only help consumers in their market, but also help agents and brokers leverage similar tools and how they interact with their consumers so that their boat rises, the MLS's boat, the value of the professional, all of that needs to rise with the portal so that a consumer can go to a portal and go to a real estate professional and have a great experience, because those professionals are our customers. So we want them to be elevating their game as we elevate our game.
So, Emily, see you nodding?
Yeah, I mean, yes, because then I'll speak to Bob's company very specifically, not from a technology partnership perspective, but a leadership one. The leadership that you've exhibited as we've worked through our recent transitions and business practice changes associated with litigation, in calling on the value of representation on both sides of the transaction and the importance of that as a cornerstone of our market, that I now understand very differently and very meaningfully as compared to many of the European markets where that representation does not always exist, has been tremendous. And I think it has proven your worth in terms of your willingness and commitment to partner with MLSs in understanding that we are both businesses that operate on the scale of those agents, on the scale of those small businesses and entrepreneurs being successful. And it's been a really great example of your willingness to support MLSs through our challenging times.
Yeah, well, we're here to support you. We get the challenges, and we're here to fight and help navigate through all that.
Thank you. I wanted to come back to Daniel. And again, you've got a different perspective. You live and you work in Spain. In North America, MLS organizations, rules, MLS systems came before portals. In Europe, it's the opposite. So can you explain to the audience, especially those from North America, the kind of influence that portals have on real estate professionals?
Yeah, well, obviously, because they have such a big market share, they also have a lot of power over agents, and we're seeing them constantly increasing prices, and us as agents are trying to stand out from the crowd, and it's not so easy when you want to push your listing to make sure that it's seen by your potential clients, and constantly asking more and more of us to just spend more and more money, which is a challenge, because since the base that we have is usually feeding from a CRM into portals and MLSs, because we do use MLSs, even though they're not quite working at the same standards as you have. The problems that we see is we have a lot of duplicates, we have a lot of non-exclusive listings. There can be differences in compliance, that they don't always comply. And the problem is that on these portals, if they don't have any quality control and don't check if the data is accurate, then we have a big problem, because who is the victim in all this? Mainly the consumer. And that is a major challenge for us. And as long as they have the power and don't do the quality control, and also they don't share the data with us, there is going to be a problem for us.
So Daniel, just a follow-up. I'm really curious about the European market. So take a market like Spain, for example. You have a listing, you want to promote it. When you say portals, how many portals would you actually share that listing with? Are you talking about a couple, a dozen, 50? What's that effort like?
I obviously work on the Costa del Sol. We have a very specific market, very international market. So we in the company that I work for, we publish in more than 30 different portals throughout Europe. Some of them are also international portals, but we obviously have to be on the main Spanish portals, but also because of the international scene that we are at, we also see, obviously, it's a very attractive place to buy a property, mainly, you know, a second home, a holiday home, or you want to retire on the Costa del Sol because of the climate. We have a lot of international clients and a lot of international collaboration, being that through portals or through the MLS systems that we actually use. So obviously, marketing budget is a little bit crazy, because we have to stand out from the crowd, which means that we have to be on all the portals, and we constantly have to evaluate what the portals are actually giving us back. At the same time, we don't get the data back from them, so we can't do a follow-up many times on what has been sold and actually have the accuracy of the data that is on there, which is a problem.
Yeah, I can only imagine the effort level, because it's not just publishing to 30 portals, but it's maintaining the information accurately, right? So like the price changes, you got to do it 30 times.
Yep.
Bob?
Yeah, I just want to do a yes and there, because even though the US is primarily a MLS-based model into the portals, Realtor.com has always taken data feeds from the MLSs, but other players have tried alternatives. And the one truism is that once you move away from the MLS as the entity that's providing you with data, and you go to the brokers or franchises or other tech players, CRMs, just, you know the list. Once you move away from the MLS, you pay a data currency, data quality, data standard. It's the value of the MLS to basically wrap up the gift and give it to you every day perfectly and in the exact same structure and have 100% of the inventory should not be undervalued or underestimated, because what you're talking about, even in the US, if you were to approach the market that way, and I'm sure you're nodding and agreeing, right? It's absolutely different experience. And once you navigate off that center beam, you understand why the MLS is as relevant and as critical to a portal's success, because it just saves cost, time, money, and the consumer experience is up here, as opposed to being, why is this listing sold, but it shows as active? Why is it on the market with 4 different prices? All the types of stuff you get when you don't get that consistency that an MLS provides.
So you can clearly see where we have a need for a properly managed MLS.
No, I totally get it. And my point is, we can see it in the US because those who try, and you watch them try, you see them all gravitate back to what is the obvious smart business decision. But sometimes they want to go against the grain, right? We've seen a few try and go against the grain. And they all come back home. And in this particular case, home is the MLS, because it's where the best data resides.
And to Bob's point, I've certainly seen that on the business side, but I've seen the inverse on the non-MLS entities. For example, my personal experiences searching for property in other foreign countries outside the US.
So on that note, Emily, I did want to tap into your expertise. So we have colleagues from around the world, and their MLS initiatives are just emerging. So what's some advice that you can give them? Like, what do you see as being their key challenges in trying to establish an MLS next to some very established portals?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I have heard all of you say very clearly is that you don't have a technology problem, you have a people problem and a politics problem. I understand those deeply. My background is not in technology, it's in government affairs and politics, which happens to serve me well in MLSs, so perhaps you'll see that translate for you as well. Facilitating change is hard, and it requires buy-in and identifying where the consensus points are and the places that you each have found value. And until you can articulate the purpose of the MLS to the agents and the customers that they serve in a very meaningful way that will impact their business real time, they're not interested. And that's what you've conveyed, is that they just don't see a real-time benefit. I think it is challenging that you are working in the reverse from the environment that we come from, where Bob speaks so eloquently about the perfect package that we produce, which I'll say you're welcome on behalf of all of my MLS colleagues. But it's difficult to translate that backwards. But I believe that there's a way, that there are ways to facilitate consensus where people find value on both sides of the equation. And I feel sure that that articulation and those value points are different in every one of your markets. And that's also the difficulty, is that you might really nail it in Egypt, and you might really not nail it yet in Romania or whatever. And I think you have to be really honed in on what the business models of your marketplace are, the way that their margins work very specifically, and how the MLS will provide an inherent value that is worth incenting that level of cooperation that they are uncomfortable with and that does not exist in their marketplace today.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I want to go to Daniel to maybe unpack. So you mentioned politics. So Daniel, in your market, How are property specialists, what's their sentiment around the idea of implementing an MLS? Are you getting resistance, enthusiasm, somewhere in the middle?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because the thing is that in Spain specifically, we have a very decentralized government. So we have challenges on different levels. And this is really hard for people to understand when they see Spain as one country, whereas it's actually not in practice. This creates challenges for us, where we have regions that are more regulated, where things have gone into better practice as well. Our national association, we're constantly pushing to try and make things better and trying to find common ground within Spain to find a way to protect the consumer, which is the main thing. There is a lot of willingness from professionals that are serious and proud of being a real estate professional to try and make things better, and we're seeing an increase in membership in our association. However, because of the lack of legislation in certain areas and the people looking for the easy money, sometimes looking for a quick commission, a lot of people, since there are no regulation in place that really enforces this, a lot of people try to get the quick money instead of being compliant, which is a problem.
I mean, look, after our experience in America over the last couple of years and the number of hours I've spent with attorneys, there are regulatory solutions that pair nicely and are critical to the success of MLSs as well, ensuring that your regulatory environment is built in support of what customer and consumer protection should look like, will enable agents to be successful in cooperating, because it creates guardrails and a floor and a ceiling, and then you can play in the middle in terms of what your business looks like. But it makes sense to me that the disparity in the regulatory environment is also prohibitive of successful MLS for you.
Yeah, we are lobbying very hard to try and change the situation, obviously.
We'd love to offer you lobby services.
So, Roberto, what can you tell us about the relationship between portals and MLSs? Give us the good and the bad.
Absolutely. If we walked into a room in any American real estate conference and we grabbed 10 brokers and 10 agents, you'd have some very strong opinions. You'd have some that are very positive towards portals. You'd have some that probably are not so positive. On one side, you've got brokers and agents that resent the portals because there may be a fee attached, and they may not want to pay for a lead that for whatever reason they perceived as their lead. You've also got brokers and agents that think that the role of the agent or the role of the realtor has been changed by the portals. And maybe it has, and maybe it hasn't. Maybe that's part of progress. But that's just a perception that exists. And so there is some resistance and there is some resentment towards portals. On the flip side of that, I know many brokers, many agents, wildly successful brokers and agents that have built their business strategy around the portals. And they realize that, again, I'm generalizing, but the portals have technology resources, they have marketing resources, they have promotional resources, they have traffic, they have consumer brands that are difficult to match, and they've found a way to make money with the portals. And so what I love about the MLS is the MLS realizes these nuances. And the MLSs realize that there's a lot of gray area, and perhaps it's even getting grayer between brokers and MLSs and agents and portals. And they kind of create a bit of a bridge between all of the different players.
That evolution, though, in the States of the support for portals, or the way in which we have built now a symbiotic relationship, took time. It's going to take time for you to transition from being portal-centric in terms of the consumer's expectation and even the agents to some degree to MLS-centric, and that level of cooperation. And I think many of you have spoken to the time that you've endured putting into building these relationships, building these networks and organizations, and I encourage you to sort of keep chipping at where are the points of consensus, because you'll get there.
I'd like to make a comment on...
Absolutely.
Because the thing is that what we are seeing is that when the portals do a good job, we get some really high-quality leads from them.
Yes.
And that works really well. And that, in many cases, can be a much better lead than an agent calling from a poorly run MLS. So the quality control really has to be in focus. And the quality of the data here is, I mean, it's been said so many times on these panels, but that I think is one of the main problems that we're seeing. I mean, listening to Dan just in the previous panel about the education and the tools, and I mean, that is really so true. And there is a challenge there to make sure that we get it right. And each market is obviously different, but we really need to make it right and make it work for each and every market in its own way as well.
Great, thank you. Bob, I just wanted to change things up. What are recent or upcoming innovations in the US that have been enabled by the collaboration between portals and MLSs?
I think some of the AI stuff I spoke to a little bit earlier. I think that we continue as a company to always seek new and innovative ways to collaborate with our partners. So Emily was referencing a campaign that we've done promoting using the power of News Corp, using the power of our corporate parent to use its media voice to get the word out to consumers about the importance to buyer agency. And to us, buyer agency is kind of at the center of the Tootsie Roll Pop for MLSs. When you grow up, as I have in the US, there's just some things that are really simple to understand. When you're separating from your spouse, you rarely say, you know, a smart thing would be for me to use, in my case, her lawyer, because I don't need representation for myself. I'm just going to wing it. And if I need to know something, I'll talk to her lawyer because he knows better why I'm getting divorced than I do, because he's representing the other side. That's a thought process that doesn't happen in the US, right? Everybody wants representation, their own representation, and that happens with listing agents, buy-side agents, and representation on both sides. And so we've taken, and that's so central to the value of MLSs in our country. And so our campaign that we did in supporting MLSs was basically saying to America, you have representation on both sides of your real estate deals. And in some cases, it costs you no more or potentially less than other places in the world. Why would you look at alternatives when you've got what we think is the best option on the table? And so we will continue to do what we think's right for the consumer, but we also want the MLSs to thrive and survive. We want buyer agency and seller agency to thrive and survive. We love that paradigm where everyone has their own representation. So there's different players in the space, but we're not always waking up every moment of every day saying, what's the best thing for us? What we do wake up saying is, what's the best thing for the consumer? And then we help constituencies that help us help the consumer. You lose sight of the consumer, and a new player will come in and cause you some pain.
Thanks, Bob. I want to build on that with Roberto. There's been a lot of great discussion around technology today. I think AI has been mentioned at every session. By the way, I think it's just a matter of time before we just call it business and won't be AI will just go away. But we heard about tokenization of real estate. We heard about having actual offers on the blockchain. So when you're thinking about these emerging technologies, do you see that as coming to disrupt the relationship between portals and MLSs, or can it actually accelerate the relationship?
You know, I think there's certainly opportunity for both. You know, if we, again, to your point, you know, AI almost seems to be an overused word. You know, we've seen it come up in almost every single panel. You know, if I were pressed to think of 5 advantages of AI, 5 disadvantages of AI, I mean, it would be very easy. You know, on the less positive side, you know, we've certainly seen some data security issues and some compliance issues with AI. We've seen some potential biases in the appraisal process through AI. And I know that our various governments are working very quickly. I know the EU has introduced a lot of regulation, and in the United States, the CFPB, Consumer Protection Bureau, has worked to regulate that. I mean, it's a world that's moving very fast. I think, just in direct answers, I think we have to be aware that for as many opportunities that exist, and there are many, we also have to be aware that there are potential pitfalls. There are potential bad actors, and we just have to, stay ahead of the curve and to, maybe perhaps overuse the term, do what's right for the consumer.
Thanks. Emily, I want to get your thoughts. Given your role leading an MLS, how do you see MLSs adapting in the next 5-10 years as consumer expectations continue to evolve?
Well, I think one of the benefits of a tight relationship between the portals and the MLSs is that that's in many cases in America where the customer begins their journey, even if it's just voyeuristic. Let me just look at houses and see what I think, and I'm not ready to buy yet, and I'm going to browse and figure this market out a little bit before I talk to a professional. You capturing insights, returning those back to professionals in a way that is meaningful and allows them to better serve those customers, I think is the potential of the value of our win-win relationship, and something that we'll continue to expand on. I think we've certainly woken up to recognizing that there is data in the customer interactions and the consumer interactions that exist not just on the portals, but with our own vendors as well, that we were blind to or sort of unaware of and not as in need of before. And now we have technology that could maximize using that data to create true market insight that is predictive, that is real time, that allows me to very acutely serve the needs of every one of my customers, is something that's very exciting and a little scary because contractually there's a whole set of hoops to run through to make sure that we're on the same page about who gets that data, who owns it, and how we all get to use it. Great. So I think we're pushing each other in that way also, in a way that's healthy and allowing the industry to think more critically about, I put the data in, I understood that very clearly, I sort of know what you can and can't do with it, but what happens with all the derivative that happens around that, and how insightful could that be if I can get it returned to me in a way that is digestible?
Great. Thank you. Daniel, just before we start to wrap up, I want to get your thoughts on what the future holds for MLSs in Europe. Like, do you think the North American model, the rules that we have, the organizations, the systems, do you think it's as simple as just copy and paste over to Europe, or will you be developing your own approach? Unpack that a bit.
Well, it's a multi-level question for sure. I don't think we can just apply the version. I think we can definitely adopt some of the good practices that have been in place. The standardization of data is definitely something that's really interesting. We have a lot of challenges there in Spain, and I can promise you that, where we don't have access to the accurate data in many cases, which is a challenge to say the least. If we can find a model that works, I think we can apply a lot of the good things and then find our own way, because I think you also have to respect the different cultures, the different languages that we have in Europe, and obviously the differences in legislation as well. You can't just say one size fits all, because that's not going to be the case. Right. And while we're respectful of the local tradition, the local customs, the local language, and the legislation, I think we can definitely find a good model as long as we keep data sources and quality control, and making sure that we definitely protect the customer at all times, because I think that has to be the most important thing throughout the process. I think there is a way, and I'm sure we can find a way.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah, you're right. That was a kind of a difficult question to unpack, but very concise. Thank you. So we just have a few minutes. Just wanted to wrap up with a final question for the four of you. So in closing, what advice would you give to our colleagues in the audience who are looking to bridge the gap between portals and MLSs?
I would just reiterate to find the points of consensus where you can provide value on both sides of the deal. You do that every day if you're a practitioner in real estate. You make the deal work. Make the deal work between the portals and the MLSs. Find those opportunities to root in what provides you real value that is meaningful today?
I've been providing like real estate tech and in the industry for like 40-something years. So the construct of bridging the gap doesn't resonate that much with me because I don't experience that gap to be bridged. So just be transparent with the group. So I would say there doesn't really have to be a gap. That's however you got to a gap, you don't really need a gap. If you put the consumer first and you think about how to evolve your industry and you appreciate the value of having representation on both sides and some of the key benefits that data standards, MLS structure can bring to your market and your country, I think the gap there probably is a gap, and I'm just not able to see it from my own bias, but I would say perhaps the gap is smaller, and therefore, then what Emily is suggesting, like find that way. It may just be whatever is half a gap. They should probably have a store. They had a baby gap. They should probably have a store called Half a Gap. Okay, I'm gonna take that idea off stage. I'm gonna run with that in all your countries. Half a Gap. Bob started it today. It's coming. You go in, you get half an outfit. You come back and get the other half another time. Go right ahead.
I think you should stick with real estate.
Stick with real estate.
I think it's time
there
for
you
lunch.
There's money in Half a Gap. You want to invest? You want to invest?
I think we have to respect the work that has been put in by the portals as well, by creating a good user interface. And then coming back to a little bit, my early comment in the panel is being a bit of an idealist. I think if we can see the portal as the user interface for the customer and making sure that the data is fed from the MLS the way it very much is in North America, I think we're on a good path. If we can create the same sort of dynamic in Europe, I think that would be very, very good.
Thank you. Roberto, last word is yours.
So Bob said he's been doing this 40 years. I feel very old, very young, because I've only been doing it for 31 years. But if I think back to 20 plus years ago, when the internet first came into play, everybody thought the realtors were going away, and everybody thought that the internet was going to just change everything, and it certainly made changes. But guess what? The MLS is still here. The MLS still plays a very important role. Brokers and agents are still here. They play a very important role. And if you're following what's happened in America over the past 12 months, I think that's a very important statement because there is a lot of change going on as we speak. And so, just kind of as a final parting thought, and my analogy is, this is one big super highway that we're on together. And there are many lanes, but they're all very important lanes. And if we stay in our lanes, but continue to move towards that ultimate goal, which I think we all agree is the consumer, we all can do great things.
That was a beautiful closing. Thank you. Round of applause for the panel. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Marion.
What an interesting panel. Thank you so much. So the portals and the MLSs, in a lot of the conversations that we've had with attendees here in the room, there has been a lot of confusion in terms of what an MLS is, what an MLS isn't. And so this portal really resonated very well with me. And one of the statements or quotes I took away, which I think was really hitting it right on, is the one that the MLS is making the market work, and the portals do play a very important role in terms of as an extension. And so I do believe that the two can coexist. Obviously, there is business to be made here, but also with the consumer in mind. And so that quote of portals being the extension of a successful market while MLSs make the market work and are the framework within each marketplace operates, thought was really well said. So with that being said, we are just about to break for lunch. And one last call for your business cards in case you would like to enter for the raffle. We are drawing this afternoon. And we are breaking now for lunch, so please be back by 2 o'clock. We'll continue with the sessions for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.